So this is our community panel, which we think will segue nicely from the administrative agency panel. We're pleased to have 3 directors of programs that actually provide the workforce development services to lower skilled Rhode Islanders. These programs receive a mix of funding from agencies that we've just heard from. RIDE provides funding for adult education, DHS for Rhode Island Works families, and from the Real Jobs and Real Pathways that Heather talked about from the Governor's Workforce Board. So I want to welcome, Mario. Looks like he stepped out, but I'm sure he will be back. Shannon Carroll, who's the president and CEO of the Genesis Center, which is based here in Providence. Welcome. Cam Enos, who is the director of the Education Exchange down in South County. Welcome, Cam. We're also happy to have Jackie Scungio, who's the HR Operations Director of the Providence Health Center with us. Thank you, Jackie. And then finally, Katerina Perez, who's participated in the medical assistance training at Genesis last September and has kindly agreed to share her journey with us. So I've asked Cam and Mario and Shannon to start by telling us a little bit about who their agencies serve and what programs they provide. So Shannon, why don't we start with you?
Sure. Mario should be back in a minute. So I'm going to pull a Heather move and say, how many people have heard of Genesis Center before? Okay, yeah, quite a few. That's some improvement. A few years ago when I asked that question, there weren't as many hands, so it's good that I think the impact of our work is being more noticed now. Genesis Center, just a brief overview, we're 35 years old now. We started out serving Southeast Asian refugees back in the time when there were many from Cambodia and Laos who settled in South Providence. And an interesting piece to that is our founder is a woman, Sister Angela Daniels, and she said, well, I know these people need some help and they need to learn English. If they're going to navigate systems in the U.S. and be successful, they need to learn English. And so she started classes, and then she discovered attendance was poor, and that's because a lot of these, mainly women, had children. And so she said, well, I need to find some childcare for these kids, and that's still a problem, finding childcare. But and at that time, the students had been so traumatized by what had happened in Southeast Asia, and they wanted their children right there with them. So that was the genesis of Genesis Center in 1982, to serve Southeast Asian refugees, teach them English, and provide childcare on the premises. So that was the start of our whole family approach that Courtney mentioned earlier. It's used to be 2-generation, now it's the whole family approach. So we're proud of the fact that we have an early learning center. We still offer English for speakers of other language classes, but we've really grown our workforce development programs in recent years. And I trace the growth in that back to in 2011. We had this moment where we realized if we want to serve our students and prepare them to get jobs, we need to integrate things into all of our classes. The realization came when we said, well, people are coming to learn English because they want a job, they want a better job, they want to start a career. And so from that point forward, we integrated technology, financial literacy, and job readiness into all of our classes. And I remember at the time when we integrated computers into our absolute beginners class, people said they can't focus on computers, they need to learn English. And I was like, that's just silly. Those things aren't mutually exclusive. We can do both of those things. So fast forward till now. We have adopted several strategies. The IDES model was mentioned earlier, and that's a model that I've been trying to integrate where you have college-level courses, occupational training, and foundational skills taught all together to accelerate one's progress into a good job, a good paying job, and financial security for their families. And so really we are focusing on pathways. We know we can't make pathways in every single industry, so we have focused on healthcare and culinary arts. Culinary arts, I always like to say this, if you go to almost any restaurant in Providence or the greater Providence area, there's probably some Genesis graduate who has helped prepare your food. With healthcare, we have a few training programs right now. We have entry-level health careers, and we have a medical assistant training, direct support professionals, and pharmacy tech. We work now in a pre-apprenticeship program with CVS to train pharmacy technicians. And what's great about these models is they're scaffolded. So they're on-ramps, off-ramps. We talked a lot about that today, that someone at an entry level can come in, they can work up, and this is a real-life example. Someone can come into one of our entry-level healthcare classes, work to get their high school credentials simultaneously. While they're getting that, then enroll in our medical assistant class, get their high school diploma, get a higher paying job as a medical assistant, and starting on that career. College is the next step. So I'm just really pleased that there's been so much cooperation. We've been talking a lot about this workforce system, but I really see it as a network. I look out in the room, I see our funders, I see advocates and data people, I see our employer partners, other community-based organizations we work with, our students who are really what's driving all of this work. And I see more cooperation, collaboration than I've ever seen. I've been in Rhode Island for a little over 15 years now doing this type of work, and I'm really, really optimistic. I see good things coming, so that's it.
Great, thanks. It's always good to end with a high note. So Cam, do you want to go next?
Sure. Do I need a microphone?
Yeah, you may pass it down, sorry.
Hi, I'm Cam Enos from the Education Exchange. We've been providing adult basic education to South County since 1979. While I was listening to these resounding themes of workforce as a network, I couldn't agree more. And remediation and how we're going to develop these career pathways, I couldn't help but be reminded of Jeff Foxworthy. I'm sitting there thinking, how am I going to pay the parking meter outside? You might be a redneck if you had to take the company van to speak at this panel, and you couldn't fit it inside either of the parking garages because you have to pick up a trailer full of dirty oyster cages to provide contextualized learning on the way back for our aquaculture training program. So it sort of goes along with the whole thing, that the premise of what we're trying to do. We have two Real Jobs consortiums. The aquaculture training program, which is expanded to include hospitality training, and the Westerly Real Jobs program, which is digital literacy, soft skills, work-based learning, but it's really an on-ramp to get to the Westerly Education Center and while providing jobs to support you as you pursue different training. We provide a number of different programs from GED preparation to National External High School Diploma, English as a Second Language, offices in Peacedale, North Kingstown, Westerly. We serve ALP students, which you heard mentioned earlier, underage students from 7 different school districts. And thanks to these consortium models and WIOA planning, we've really developed some career pathways to provide industry-recognized credentials and transition students to post-secondary enrollment where they're prepared to successfully complete. So in 2015, I stepped away from the board and became executive director. And I'm an attorney, and I'll let you know a little secret. We have to do so many credits of professional development a year, and they're due in June, and sometimes we pick our PD based on location instead of the actual content. So when Matunic Oyster Bar popped up, I signed on. So I'm sitting there racking my head about trying to find an identified growing industry, and I see Professor Dale Levitt put up this chart from the Coastal Resource Management Council about the astronomical growth from oyster sales from 2002 to 2014. And it's just the eureka moment. Ken Ayers is in the room, the head of aquaculture, Dave Butel. All the big players are there. So I'm like, all right, now's the time. So I called all of them afterwards and said, who needs to be in the room to design this curriculum? And the most important part, I think, was getting a convener, someone in the industry that somebody trusts to sign on the employer partners. And once you have them in the room to design the curriculum and provide the skill sets and the credentials that they want and value in a program, and Real Jobs gave me the flexibility to do that and get them in the room through a planning grant, we were able to design a curriculum that is successful and actually has students going into jobs and becoming farm managers and applying for their onlys now in their third year. So the post-secondary transition is always a hard part because we know about remediation. We tried to tackle it. I've seen the data. I've been to CCRI. I've successfully transferred. I had to take a remedial class, so I get it. We're an AccuPlacer preparation and testing center as well, and getting students to pass the AccuPlacer before their transition to CCRI has been a huge component. How do we provide post-secondary credit? The GED now has 3 levels of scores. So you can pass being exempt from remedial classes, or you can pass with college credit. A lot of people play fantasy football. I'm a GED testing administrator. I do not. I play GED tracking. So if I've got a teacher out in Westerly who wants to put in Johnny, well, I don't know. Johnny's not ready because I can see his practice scores, and don't we want Johnny to have college credit? So as we're aligning all these career pathways, it's important that we do have this network of employer partners and educational partners and community service agencies to surround our students with the resources that they need to succeed. With the ALP students specifically, we recently accepted them into some of our training programs, like a hospitality training program. So we're accomplishing them graduating with work-based experience, industry-recognized credentials. We've tracked them to get 175 on their GEDs. They're getting college credit, and they're employed full-time, and they're registered. They're going to CCRI in September. So we've been able to do it successfully. Has it been easy? No, not at all. I hope the governor's right when she said that work and family balance is to be measured over time. Because it's certainly taken a lot of work, but we've had such a great community of partners and funders and people in this room that we've been able to successfully create career pathways in aquaculture, hospitality, and prepare people to enter the Wesley Education Center, which has been a huge asset to our community. And that's pretty much it.
Great, thank you. And for those people who may not know what the ALP stands for, it's the Alternative Learning Plan. Correct? It's the people who have different high school plans because they're not on track to graduate from high school. And now, Mario, would you like to tell us a little bit about Progressive Latino and the programs and folks that you serve?
Good morning, everyone. I'd like to do what Brenda did, which is also thank EPI for all their great work and helping to steer the ship here in Rhode Island. So thank you so much. And Progressive Latino has been around since 1977. It's the biggest Latino organization in the state. And we started as a social action organization. It was called originally Acción Hispana, and it was started by immigrant activists, including clergy. And they were very concerned, as we still are today, about the disparities in our community. And over time, it moved from a social action organization to a full social service organization, from a continuum of services from bilingual early childhood education to dual language bilingual adult education, senior services in Spanish, and other programs like a wellness clinic that's bilingual. We're at the heart of Central Falls. We partner very closely with the city of Central Falls, Pawtucket, and with all of the leadership there. And we see a lot of folks from Providence as well. Our pathos, our everything in terms of our thinking is what does the community need? And there's been a lot of talk within the panels and everything about what's happening in terms of communities of color, Latino specifically, in terms of adult ed in the workforce. Over 60% of folks in adult programs are Latino. Over 50% of folks in the programs are in ESL programs. And we at Progressive Latino are very concerned and in terms of the future, but we also have some hope. That's what we're still working really hard. And we live in a global community. Unfortunately, we haven't learned from our past. We're an immigrant country, formed by immigrants. In Central Falls at one time, schools taught in French. People spoke French You know, and I speak to some of the senior citizens in our program, and they used to say, oh, this is how it was in our town. Unfortunately, we forget all of that. And we're advocating for a bilingual approach. We're advocating to see, just like the commissioner spoke about, see people that represent the community and that can speak to the community from at a first base level. So a lot of our staff are, they come from all different countries. When students see them, when they speak to them, they can speak to them in their language. And our programs are also in both languages. So we're trying to bridge a gap. We started as a social action organization because we saw the challenges involved working with the bureaucracy, and we're still with facing the same challenges. But we have hope. We're trying our best. We have an adult ed program that starts with native literacy, has a program that focuses on both languages to build basic skills. And we have a GED program, and we also have, just as was mentioned, some industry-based programs like hospitality. And we have a new program that's been around for 2 years, supported through United Way, that's called Bridge to Careers. And we noticed how difficult it is for folks to enter college or career training because of the barriers of entry that exist. Most folks that are adults that go to CCRI or wherever that is, they don't think, hey, I have to study for the AccuPlacer. They just go and they take the AccuPlacer. They get into remedial class, they're stuck in remedial classes and they drop out. They use up their Pell money and they drop out. So you ask, hey, why is it that at CCRI the graduation rate is 13%? Well, that could be one of the reasons. And so we're trying our best as an organization, a small community-based organization, to have those conversations. Oftentimes employers and government, they think, okay, well, this is the formula, A plus B equals C. But as Hillary says, it takes a village, and we need to start from the community. It starts all there. And if people don't feel safe, if they don't feel they can communicate or relate to, they won't be part of that community. They'll come in and they'll try their best to achieve whatever goals they have, but oftentimes they're not going to meet that because it starts there. And I think that's what we have to think about when we think about adult education and workforce development.
Great, thank you, Mario. So, Katerina, I want to go to you next. Thank you for being here today and sharing your journey to your current job. Can you tell us a little bit about your experience at Genesis and where you're working now?
Sure. First of all, I am honored for me to be here and speak not just for myself, but also on behalf of the other students, my classmates at the Genesis Center. A little background. I'm sorry, I have a little cold, so just bear with me. A little background about myself. I'm a wife, mother of two, and prior to attending the program at Genesis Center, I was a stay-at-home mom. Last year, when my youngest entered pre-K, I decided to go back to school and earn a certificate as a medical assistant. And so I began to research programs. And of course, what was going to cost our family for me to attend the program. And I found courses that range from $1,500 to, there was one that was about $15,000. And of course, we couldn't afford it. I came across the Genesis Center, and I got accepted into their 2017 Fall Medical Assistant Program, and since then my life has changed completely. Besides learning the skills I needed to succeed as a medical assistant, I also learned very important skills that I feel that every job seeker should know, and that is how to properly write a resume and a cover letter, getting people ready to interviews, and also they also provided me with the tools that I needed, like medical scrubs, a stethoscope, proper attire for me to wear to my interview. I also received financial counseling, math, computer classes, But most important, I received the undivided support from a group of people who only passion was for me and every student at the Genesis Center to succeed. To see the staff going above and beyond to help me or one of my classmates, whether it was with childcare, applications for assistant, job applications, transportation. I mean, it was amazing. It's amazing the work that they do. They provided me with an internship with childcare. It was one of the best experiences I ever had, and I'm forever thankful for that experience. Some of my classmates were hired after completing their internships. And for me, well, I got hired starting May 7th. You're looking at a lifespan new medical assistant around. I couldn't do it without agencies like the Genesis Center for their humble, caring, supportive staff. And I'm thankful for all the good work and dedication that they put into the community. And I'm thankful for giving me the chance to also now be able to give that back to the community.
Great, thank you. Thank you. It's great to hear a real life experience of how these programs can help folks. And last but not least, Jackie, you've been waiting very patiently. Jackie Scungio, again, is with the Providence Community Health Center. And you would tell us a little bit about your relationship with the Genesis Center and how those programs work?
Absolutely. But let me start with this. Number one, I want to encourage all of the legislators and policymakers in the room to create a private industry environment in which it encourages job growth and continued investment, not only by the companies that are here, companies to stay here, and companies to want to move here. As I listened to Ms. Perez's story, I have a lot of similarity with her background, but it goes back much further, 35 years ago. And I thank the industry leaders at the time who made investments in various community-based organizations back then. I'm lucky because I went to the community center in East Providence, who put me in touch with the Urban League of Rhode Island. And thanks to B.J. Clanton, I received my scholarship to get to my first year at Bryan College, which I wouldn't have been able to do without that scholarship. I'm the daughter of immigrants, never spoke English until I went to kindergarten, only speak Cape Verdean Creole. But also thanks to the Sir Jobs for Progress, that was my very first job in between high school and college. So with those opportunities, being able to help build a resume, I carried that with me for a very, very long time. And then entering industry, I went back to the Urban League of Rhode Island when I was with a private employer in Massachusetts that we needed to quickly hire 300 pickers, packers, shippers, similar to an Amazon environment. And I said, I know where to go. We already had 1,800 unionized employees on staff and needed more. I came back to my partners at the Urban League of Rhode Island and said I need employees from this area, knowing that it was very Afro-American, low unemployment, Hispanic, and all of a sudden we had 300 employees just like that. We put in a busing program. We had to be creative about it, but we bused people from Prairie Avenue and downtown Providence, the bus terminal, as well as one additional pickup in Central Falls. So I encourage employers to be very, very creative about their grassroots outreach efforts because there are job developers out there, and when you're hard-pressed to find your next population growth to fill your jobs, you need to go to those grassroots developers like organizations that are represented on this panel. So again, I want to thank all of the people that helped me along the way to get to where I am, and my goal is to give back. So I want to thank Liz Hankey from the Genesis Center, who first called me when I returned to Rhode Island 2 years ago after working in Massachusetts for 20 years. And after that, I met Shannon as well. We've had a strong partnership with the Genesis Center. I think it's been 20 months now. Providence Community Health Centers has been in existence for 50 years. And they're in Providence, the town that I was born. And my family lived in South Providence. I can't tell you which doctors I saw, but probably one of their doctors back then. But what we've been able to do with the Genesis Center is basically create a partnership program for entry-level job opportunities. We take their interns. At this point, we've been able to host well over a dozen students from Genesis Center and another area, technical school, for medical assistant. We previously only did clinical rotations and preceptors for nurses, but we wanted to do that outreach to more entry-level positions. So we've had a very successful program. We have been able to hire a lot of our former interns into the organization as a direct hire employee, or they come to work for us as a temporary employee. We're represented by 1199 SEIU. We recently negotiated a new contract with them. Our entry-level wages for medical assistants is very, very favorable. We pay over $17 an hour, and we're proud of that commitment. We're proud of the commitment that we have to the Hispanic community and other communities of color. It was important to me that to my family, that they found people that were bilingual in their language back when they first arrived as immigrants, and we continue to help people shepherd and navigate their way through the great American dream. And I'm really proud to be with an organization like Providence Community Health Centers. So with that, I'm just looking forward to our continued growth and expansion with the Genesis Center. We have a strong diversity and inclusion committee where we want to expand our outreach efforts into a lot of different organizations that we don't currently work with. I had a meeting earlier this week with CCRI, talk about a beautiful, vibrant, diverse campus right here in Providence, and a lot of languages being spoken. We're starting to see an influx of people from additional African nations, Nigerians. We're starting to see Syrian refugees show up in our community health centers. So again, what makes the state so unique is our diversity. We're a small size. We should be able to get things done quickly. And a lot of good work has been done thus far, and I look forward to contributing to great success in the Rhode Island economy for the years to come. Thank you.
So you're all doing such wonderful work. Can you talk a little bit about some of the challenges that you face providing services, or some of the challenges to the success of your participants?
The participants have been very, very successful in the internship program. I wanted to highlight a new program too that we've been talking about with apprenticeship. And all of our medical assistants currently do not have to be a certified medical assistant, but we do want to create a pathway for additional wages, etc. So we were approached by SEIU to explore adult education through an internship program, and we decided at that time to invest in our incumbent employees. So what we have done is applied for Governor's Workforce Grant, which we received. We're in phase one, and phase one is the construction of training curricula for certified medical assistants with very targeted training in all of our specialty clinics. We range from OBGYN to podiatry to optometry to pediatrics and more. We want our staff to be able to float into any clinic and provide good coverage. So these certified medical assistants will be our experts, if you will, experts in all the clinical specialty areas, and this is what this apprenticeship program is designed around. Great. We also just found out earlier this week that we were the recipient of an HCAP grant for phase 2, in which we will be able to hire an instructor who will come on premises and teach our incumbent employees.
Great.
So this is great new avenue for us to enhance the skills within our population of staff, and we're very much looking forward to this program.
Excellent. Cam, do you want to speak to challenges?
Yeah, we've had some challenges along the way.
I bet you have.
Although I got a piece of paper in the mail the other day that we do have the first oyster farm hand apprenticeship in the nation.
Congratulations.
That only took a year and a half. But as far as grading funds, challenge around that when you have 4 different funding streams from RIDE and Real Jobs funding and DHS funding and CDBG funding, all surrounding these different programs. It would be great if we could get Real Jobs and RIDE on the same fiscal calendar year.
Are you saying you get too much money?
No. So that's certainly been a challenge, managing the data and reporting when you're on 2 different calendar years. Another challenge, as we all know, is transportation. That's a significant barrier, especially in rural communities in southern Rhode Island. And even getting to the one-stops that are open only a few days a week. Certainly, there has been difficulty with the opiates, and I'll say this because we do supply a stipend to our students because we want to put them on the pathway to sustainable careers. We do provide a stipend, and we've often seen people leave after the first check, and not come back. And we do screen, we do significant screening, and we do have the resources in the community. We have 2 basic needs networks that have all the service providers. We call it like the Peacedale swing. If you can't get food, shelter, and healthcare and education in Peacedale from 4 different agencies, we can pretty much solve all of Maslow's needs. Challenges to the gateway to post-secondary. We're struggling to align our curriculum to Mike Rice, who has the BS in aquaculture at URI, but we've worked with the Coastal Institute, and we anticipate a Sea grant, which will be bolstering our curriculum and putting it online, and so more people will have access to it for the oyster farming training. And we've got some letter of intention from CCRI, so hopefully we can award a post-secondary certificate by putting all the right players in the room.
Great.
So that's been great, and we hope to resolve those issues. Transportation and funding calendar years, that would be awesome.
Shannon, do you want to speak to any of the challenges your
Sure.
students face?
And first up, let me say I feel like we've focused on Genesis Center in this little part of the table here, but we are just one of many organizations doing this really great work in Rhode Island. And and I partner with Mario on our Citizenship Consortium. Cam, we've worked together on several instances. So we are all, back to that whole network thing, it takes all of us. And the same barriers, every year I've been doing this, the 2 barriers for our learners that come up are childcare and transportation. Those are just the ones that never, ever, ever go away. We are fortunate that our funders, I saw our list of funders just left, but Governor's Workforce Board, Real Pathways recognizes this. We just submitted our RIDE RFP yesterday, and so we talked about the need for support services. So a lot of our learners come to us and they have a lot of barriers that need to be resolved if they're going to persist in class and then move on. So transportation, it's there's the new program with the RISE, RIPTA Enterprise Ride Share program that shows some progress. At Genesis
we explain what that is?
Oh, okay. I'm not the expert on it, but it is an agreement with Enterprise and RIPTA for a low cost, and anyone else who wants more information can look it
Sorry,
up.
I didn't mean to put you on the spot.
It's a ride share program where, so let's say, for example, a bunch of Genesis students were going to work at, I don't know, Kent County Hospital, and it's a bit of a ride there. They can rent this at a very low cost, and they share the ride to their job and back. So it's an affordable way and a creative way to tackle this problem that just doesn't seem to go away. We're also just about to embark on an IDA, an individual development account match savings program, to help students save money to buy a car. So they will save. We'll help them. They meet with our financial coach, come up with a plan to do the savings, and then we'll match up to $2,000 to help them buy a car. So we're kind of excited about that too. But it also brings us to the big child care issue. And it's been said several times today that if we want people to be able to go to job trainings, get a job, go on to college, they need consistent, high-quality childcare. And we're an adult ed provider, but we're also an early learning center. And anyone who knows me hears me say this all the time. We're at a critical point where we cannot find qualified teachers to fill our classes. The requirements by Bright Stars and DCYF are going up and up and up, and so we need people with higher credentials to work in our classrooms. But unfortunately, the pay is so low. The pay is just above minimum wage, and it's hard work. It's really demanding work. So I know some attention is being given to this problem, and I think some more resources and more attention needs to be given to this problem, and really recognize childcare as an industry, and get some training money to go to training our teachers. I say this all the time. Childcare is a workforce issue in two ways. We need people who can go into the workforce. We have a lot of students. Our students want to work in childcare. They love childcare, and so they just need to be trained so they can become good childcare teachers. So it's workforce that way, and of course it's workforce as a support. People can't go to work without it. And I will just add the other barrier is we are trying to open that door to higher ed. There's been a lot of progress. If we want to continue those career pathways, people will need those credentials. We want to meet that goal of getting 70% of Rhode Islanders credentialed by 2025, and I think the adult education population is going to be critical to making that happen.
Katerina, do you want to speak to any challenges that you or some of your other friends have faced in trying to either go back to school or complete your certificate?
Sure. I think that childcare is one of them. I personally, my husband at that time, he was the only one that worked, and I decided to stay home because we couldn't afford, I couldn't afford to go to work, and basically all the money that I would have gotten from a job, it would have gone to childcare. So we decided to just wait until he went to school, and then I will get going with my education. I think childcare is a big issue.
I swear I'm not paying people to say this. For anybody who knows me, they know that childcare is so close to my heart, and it comes up in every conversation that we're having on every issue. So, thank you for that. Let's see. We talked a little bit with the agency folks about interagency partnerships. Mario, would you like to speak about how you work with different state agencies and how that either works well or could be better coordinated to meet the needs of your students?
Well, I just want to talk to the challenge first. In terms of our community, the biggest challenge is English language, the English language, and that's a problem across the board, and literacy as well, native literacy. So a lot of folks want opportunities. Some of them are professionals in their own countries, and they come here, but they need a break. And oftentimes we're the translators in between, the go-betweens. We have a job club at Progressive Latino, and it focuses on how can immigrants here learn the system and be able to compete in the marketplace. And so I think that's a big, big challenge that we don't underestimate. It's a tremendous challenge, and it's trying to, make sure that there's communication and that employers understand that if you have someone with skills, having an accent or not speaking English perfectly, it shouldn't be a barrier to be part of the workplace. In terms of interconnectedness, I think that with WIOA, the Workforce Investment Act, the new one, that was the full intention of integrating all of the government agencies. We had a panel of them here, and they're speaking the same language. They have the same goals. However, when you get down to the grassroots, it's very difficult because there's not enough resources. We have four one-stops in the state to serve all of the unemployed. Right now, we have a lower unemployment rate, so thank God for that. But we still have the same challenges. The one-stops don't have enough bilingual speakers to help the immigrant community, and that's a challenge that we're talking about right now. And so it's great that we work together, but if we don't get to the core challenges and change the way we do things so that we accommodate and have equity, then we're not going to have equity. It's just going to be the same old. And many times we're constrained by policy. And unfortunately, we have to think, how can we take those shackles off so we could really help the community and be part of the community, and not just come in every day and then say, well, we have to do A, B, and C. And by the way, these are the rules. If you want to get SNAP, you have to do A, B, and C. If you want to get unemployment benefits, you have to do A, B, and C. There's no discussion about why don't you qualify? Why can't you qualify? And if you can't qualify for a certain benefit, what can we do to accommodate you? I think that's the crucial question is the in-between that often doesn't get discussed. And right now, amongst the agencies, they're talking about one assessment process for everyone when you go to the one-stop. That links to the nonprofit organizations that are providing these services. I think we're heading in the right direction, and that we have to make it easier for people to be able to be in the programs and to be successful in the programs.
Great. So let's turn to you. Do you guys have... Oh, I'm sorry. Did you have something else you wanted to...
Yeah, I'd like to back up what
Go
Mario
ahead.
was saying about state agencies. And even though they speak different languages in terms of intake, assessment, invoicing, budget, reporting, the one positive takeaway is I can hear the GWSB's voice resounding through RIDE and DLT and DHS and what everybody wants. So the message is there. And we're all working towards the same thing, but we could streamline the process if we all spoke the same language.
Great. So questions from the audience for this great panel? Or comments? I know that a lot of you are also doing the same work. Yeah, one over here.
This is more of a comment than a question.
Sure.
But I know you opened, or somebody mentioned this morning, Dr. Carson's announcement about a change in revenue structure. Another part of that plan is to disallow deductions for childcare and medical expenses in the calculation. So that is another huge loss. And so I know we're all beating the same drum. We've got a great delegation down there, but if we can reach out to our friends in other states, because this is a battle that needs to go on across the country. So.
Right. Any other comments? Patricia?
Good morning. My name is Pat DeFalco, and I'm in Community Development for Citizens Bank. And my passion is financial education and empowerment. And I just want to say to the folks in the room to make sure that that's a component of K through 12 education, and getting our 39 superintendents on board to make it mandatory in the school system. And also, I work with a lot of the organizations in this room to provide financial empowerment for these folks who are going through workforce development programs, so that now that they become a little bit more wealthy, they know how to spend this money, they know how to budget, they know how to improve their credit scores, and that's going to help them to progress even more.
Great, thanks. Heather, did you have a final comment?
I did, but I don't want to be. If somebody, is there another question? Somebody else should go. No.
Go ahead.
You're just going to fill the space. You're going to talk about. It's me. You're going to talk about how the assessment. Oh, okay. I don't even need a mic. So you guys are obviously doing phenomenal work. One of the things from the Governor's Workforce Board, and I'm going to speak beyond some of the other states have, I think we look to see the capacity building for other nonprofits and community-based organizations and our kind of consortium building out of these partnerships. What advice do you guys have for the other either community partners in the room or the other folks that want to be involved in a partnership but maybe haven't kind of figured that out yet? Since it seems like it takes a while to figure it out and, you know, figuring out all the funding streams. And so what's your advice to the other folks in the room?
It's a great question.
If you're going to link up with other providers like we have in Westerly, for instance, we have a consortium there with adult education providers, and it used to be a partnership where everyone was contributing together, and now I find myself in a position that I have subcontractors who aren't performing, have clear expectations from the beginning, and in terms of reporting and case management, I would advise centralized data reporting, centralized case management, and have educational services or limited services contracted out to these smaller partners in the consortium model.
Shannon?
You want to go first? Yeah, I just want to get, I guess I'm preaching to the choir here because there's a lot of folks that I see in the room that are doing great work. But my suggestion is that you listen to the needs of the people that you serve, and not often the big gray cloud over everything is you have to follow certain rules, unfortunately. But listen to the community and what they really need, and aspire to meet those needs and what they want and how they want to do it. Not just what you think that's, you know, is going to work, but listen to that, because oftentimes we get so busy trying to respond to, you know, it should be this way or it should be that way, that we forget what are the assets that the community that you're serving bring to the table. That's often missed because, oh, well, we have to do this, we have to follow this standard, or we have to do this curriculum, or we have to follow this rule. And oftentimes, people in the room, they have the answers. They know what they want, they know what they need. So the first part is listening. If you listen, you're going to be able to make a difference.
One piece of advice I have for community-based organizations is to be persistent. Call not once or twice, call often. Invite us to go see your facilities, those of us that are employers. And when we go and we see the passion that's there, we can't help ourselves but want to be involved. So please do that.
Great.
Yeah, and I do think that's, you know, sometimes people think working with an adult education provider, as far as, you know, getting there as a pipeline for their employees, isn't all that enticing. I don't know. I think there used to be a bit of a stigma to hiring an adult ed graduate. But I think that's changing, and I think Jackie's right. You know, we have to do a better job of telling employers what we can do, and you know, we can be nimble. That's what I love about the work we do, is that we don't have to stick so much to policy. Our funders seem to understand that they want us to be innovative, they want us to be creative, you know, with certain parameters, but we can be flexible to meet the individual needs of employers. And yeah, I invite any employer to come by and see what we do. And you know, to your point, Mario, I think yeah, you do need to listen. We, you know, assess our students' needs. We have feedback surveys that we have with every class. If we're falling short in some way, we think, wow, what can we do to address that? And then if we don't have the expertise in-house, that's where I look at who has that, who's good at that, who can I approach in our network of people to help us with that. And you know, and sometimes there are unlikely partnerships. Like we work with the Steel Yard, for example, and you know, it doesn't seem like we would be a natural fit, but we do their job readiness portion for their Well to Work program. So sometimes there are these unlikely partnerships that form just when you start talking to people.
Great. Well, I know I'm standing in the way between you and lunch, so let's give one more round of applause to this great panel. And I know I at least am optimistic after hearing of all the great work that all of you are doing, that we're all going to figure this out and reach all of the goals, both of the state and the individuals. I encourage you all to continue to collaborate with each other. And thanks again to our sponsors and all our speakers and agency heads and community partners who joined us today. Thank you very much.